Not too far from the Salt Lake City International Airport is a group of brand new buildings. So new, they're not even recorded on Google Earth. This is the new home of Harvestrite, makers of the home freeze dryer. Their brand new building is really impressive. You'll have to take my word on it. I'm here at Harvestrite today to check out their new building, 400,000 square feet, and to tour their facility. Harvestrite's new building took their previous 5 buildings and combined it into a single building. They made the move in early 2023.
Garages are special places. A lot of great things have come out of garages. For example, Apple computers, Hewlett-Packard computers, Google. Another great invention that has come out of a garage is the Harvestrite freeze dryer. Dan Neville started Harvestrite in 2012 from a challenge from the founder's father. He wanted his son to make something helpful for the masses. With a family background in food storage, Dan Neville went to work and developed the first home-use freeze dryer. Dan studied at Brigham Young University and the University of Utah. On November 11, 2012, he started his business with 7 employees.
When we first set out to make this incredible machine, our goal was to make do-it-yourself food storage possible for every family. To accomplish that, our machine would have to be smart, powerful, and made for long-term use. Engineers in the industry originally told us that the machine we wanted couldn't be made, but we didn't stop there. After years of persistence, we were able to innovate on existing designs and eventually make the impossible possible. Today, our home freeze dryer is proof that high-quality engineering can be made affordable for everybody.
Dan is a dedicated business owner. His mantra is Matthew 25. This chapter of Scripture, Jesus calls his followers to take care of each other, the sick, the hungry, the naked, and the imprisoned. Dan is a humble man that just wants to make freeze dryers. The very first prototype developed had a straight-through chamber design with a door at the front and a door at the back. It had a single power switch for off and on, and a switch to control the heat to control the drying cycle. Progress was made to improve the original design. 4 years after they started, they introduced their first model. With time, innovations and modifications occurred. Soon, 3, 4, and 5 shelf freeze dryers were developed. Commercial and pharmaceutical freeze dryers were also developed. My first impressions of the Harvestrite facility was how massive this building was. 400,000 square feet, over 9 acres of covered facility. That's almost 7 football fields. The first section that we came to was the return section. This is where freight damage items were taken and also customer defective returns. Orange tags denote customer repairs. Green tags denote freight damage repairs. Units were stripped down basically to the bare bones. Items and components were tested. Defective components replaced or repaired, and the units reassembled. A mini test would then be completed, and then a batch run would be performed. Then the units would go to a cleaning station where they'd be ready to be shipped out to the customer, or the customer could then come and pick them up. The current turnaround time for repairs and returns is 3 days. A section of the facility is set aside for the rebuilding of the oilless scroll vacuum pump. This oilless vacuum pump requires a press to remove its bearings. Because of this and the lack of oil used for lubrication and the intake of acidic vapors from the freeze dryer, I'm surprised that customers still use an oilless pump when the Premier pump has proven to be so effective as a companion to the Harvest-Right freeze dryer. Harvest-Right has 3 dedicated employees to perform these rebuilds. Each rebuild takes about 3 hours. Each pump is torn down, sandblasted, cleaned, and tested for 24 hours before going back out to the customer. A current process improvement that's currently underway at Harvest-Right is called the +1 program. This is where they're taking the standard shelving unit of a freeze dryer and adding an extra shelf to each unit. The shelving unit remains the same size, they're just taking it apart and fitting in an extra shelf. So basically, a 4 shelf becomes a 5 becomes a 6. This is happening to all the different models of the Harvest-Right freeze dryer and can best be explained by this animation. So what's new at Harvest-Right? Well, it's a +1 program. That is adding 1 additional shelf, or +1, to each shelf assembly. So, for example, in the medium shelf assembly, medium freeze dryers currently have 4 shelves, which basically will allow to put 4 shelves with food in the shelf assembly. So what Harvest-Right is doing, they're taking the standard shelf brackets and adding a 5th shelf. Now, this isn't adding any extra volume, it's just adding a shelf and a 5th tray. So you can add more food, but the volume itself is actually going to decrease just a little bit to make room for the additional shelf and the additional tray. So if you have a 3-tray freeze dryer, the new freeze dryers will have 4 trays. So the 4-tray freeze dryers now will have 5 trays. The 5-tray large freeze dryers will have 6. And I think what you see where I'm going. Every freeze dryer will have a +1. Now, as I said earlier, the volume inside the freeze dry shelves will decrease a little to make room for the extra shelf and the extra tray, but the tray count will increase by 1. Personally, I have kind of mixed feelings with the +1 program because I kind of like to have the extra space so I can kind of add extra food to each shelf when I freeze dry. The shelving units don't become any larger, it's just that they're going to make the space between each shelf a little bit smaller. A process improvement that was underway during my visit to Harvest-Right was the replacement of the round sight glass on the Premier vacuum pump. The round sight glass held in with epoxy had a problem with leaking, so the front cover was being removed and a new cover was being replaced with a rectangular sight glass that was held on with screws and a gasket. This kept it from leaking and made the Premier pump a better product. The newest Harvest-Right freeze dryer, the XL, seems to be more than just extra large. This new freeze dryer has exceeded the expectations of Harvest-Right. Introduced in 2022, the extra large has become extremely popular. I was amazed to find racks and racks of freight damaged freeze dryers. On average, freight companies damage about 200 units every week. Harvest-Right is working with Federal Express to reduce freight damage. Here are a few suggestions customers can do to ensure that their units don't have hidden freight damage. Follow Harvest-Right's pre-arrival receiving procedures before your freeze dryer arrives. Before signing for your freeze dryer, make sure you document any type of damage on your freeze dryer box, no matter how slight. It's hard to get over the size of the Harvest-Right facility. Most of the space is dedicated to storage. At any one time, there's about 40,000 freeze dryers located within the facility. This accounts for about 3 months' worth of sales. So far, Harvestright has sold about 500,000 units. That's a lot of success, but with success comes growing pains. A visit to Harvestright would not be complete without swinging by their kitchen. On the day I was there, I was hoping they were going to do Fat Boy ice cream, but no, they're doing strawberries. The test kitchen that Harvestright has processes samples not only for potential customers, but also for trade shows. Popular samples such as beef stroganoff, bananas, strawberries, and of course Fat Boy ice cream are processed on a bank of XL freeze dryers. These samples are then packaged in smaller packages for distribution. I enjoyed my tour with Harvestright, and I thank them for the invitation. If I can say anything about Harvestright's future, is they will need to continue to innovate and to focus on customer service. Competition is out there and everywhere. I'd like to thank you for your time. Please subscribe. And as always, go forth and freeze dry the world.